loneliness is sometimes a byproduct of not being a part of a community. And I think one of the things that we need to continue to advocate for and to push for and to work towards is creating those communities.
Welcome to Impact, the Conversation, a podcast of the University of Minnesota's Institute on Community Integration that brings you strategies and stories advancing the inclusion of people with disabilities. Our guests are the authors of Impact, our long-running magazine that bridges the research to practice gap with professional and personal reflections on what matters most in disability equity today. I'm your host, Janet Stewart. What we're here today to do is chat a little bit about how you've dealt with loneliness in the past, maybe put some ideas together about how maybe we could help others in different situations in their life to feel a little less lonely, and talk a little bit about maybe what we need to do as a community to make sure that we address some of these issues. Maybe, Anne, let's start with you. Can you, again, tell us your name and where you go to school?
Yes. My original name is Annie Amelia Sophia Schofheim, but I also changed my name to my stage name because I want to be an actress. So my name is Anne Grace Winter. I am 20.
And Emmy and Katie are your sisters, right?
Yeah, I always put them first because they're really important to me.
What's the earliest memory you can think of when you were little where you've been talking about putting them first and everything? Do you guys stick together pretty well?
Yes, but when they were little, they were slightly annoying, and I actually was a quiet one. I always stuck with Mom and Dad the most, so.
So how did you come out of your shell and get interested in acting?
I just, I don't know. That's a good question.
Just kind of happened over time?
It just happened. And because I put my family first, but then I also put my acting second. And I also really want to meet Idina Menzel. She's my favorite actress. And my favorite singer is, Taylor Swift. But actually, my favorite is Lana Del Rey. And I love her so much.
Why?
Because she has a gothic, dark side to her. And that's kind of my style of music a little bit. And I really like that a lot.
You like something with a little edge, right?
Yeah, I like something like really, really dark and gothic-like.
Well, let's talk about some of that darkness because that might be a good entry point to start working on our little project here. Yeah. When you hear the word loneliness and you think about times in your life when you felt a little loneliness, can you tell me what that was like? Can you think about a time in your life when you dealt with that?
I felt the loneliest when my brother left for California. I was hollow, I was lonely, and he's been my home for many years, and I miss him so much.
So you guys were pretty close?
Yeah, we were really close together, yeah. And my whole family got COVID, and then we were lonely together.
And when he was getting ready to leave, did you know for a long time that he was going to leave?
No, I didn't know he was going to leave. And then both of us just immediately shut down. We just immediately started crying. Both he and I, after when he left, I didn't want to come out of my room for hours because he's just always been there for me.
So your first response was to kind of shut down and shut the door and not come out of your room. And how did you kind of work through that?
With a little bit of time, with my family, it's just been, I get a lot of encouraging words out of Emmy because now that when he's gone, the person I'm close with now is Emmy because she's really important to me.
And so did she start just hanging out a little bit more with you? Or what were those first early days like when you were really feeling lonely? What do you think? Do you remember like something that she did or something that another person in your family did that kind of really felt like, yeah, that was important?
Yeah, because Emmy, she's my home. And without her, I would be lonely probably every day of my life. I would hate for that to happen to her.
Have you always spent a lot of time together?
I've always been together with both of my sisters.
When do you get lonely today? What's going on when you start to feel like, what do you long for, or what do you hope? What do you hope for? Are there times when, gosh, I wish I had something more that would make me feel a little less lonely? Do you ever think about that?
A little bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so around those times, is it times when you're you're busy and you're having to spend more time alone because you're doing so many different things and you haven't been to a party much recently or have done many social things? Or is it more of a, gee, I wish I had a deeper friendship with someone not in my family? Or both of those things?
Yeah, actually, okay, so this is in my school at Tech.
Okay.
I've had a best friend that we've known each other since Lincoln, and he's really, really important to me.
And Lincoln was your elementary school,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So
I've known him for a long time. He was really important to me, too.
And so you guys are close.
He's really close, yeah.
And so when you have to go a while without seeing him, that's a bummer?
A little bit, yeah.
Well, one thing I'd like to do now, I know you're a journalist as well. You're a writer for your high school paper, or for the Tech Times transition program paper. And so what I'd love to do is have you put on your writer hat and your reporter hat, and maybe start with your dad and introduce him and ask him a little bit about how he thinks about loneliness.
This is my dad. And he was born in 1965. And then, what does loneliness mean to you?
I can think about one of the times I was really, really lonely was when I went off to college for the first time, because it was the first time I had been away from home and away from my family, and I didn't really know anybody. I hadn't met Mom yet, so didn't know her. And yeah, it's a hard time. It's hard to be lonely.
I want to know how you and Mom, got together, got engaged, and got married.
Okay, wow. So Mom and I were both students at Iowa State, and we both happened to be going to the same church.
And did you have a crush on her?
Well, yeah, I kind of did. And I thought she was pretty cute. And so I started to talk to her, and she talked to me. And yeah, I did kind of get a crush on her. We kind of fell in love and decided we should get married.
And then have kids.
And then have kids, yeah.
And then
so
the both of you gave me the one thing that I needed the most, and that was both you and Katie.
Yeah, let me talk about that a little bit. So we had Daniel and Andrew, who were twins, and then we had Sam, and then the fourth child we had was who?
Me.
Was you.
Yeah.
And so when Anne was born in 2004, and we didn't know that Anne was going to have Down syndrome when she was born, so that was a little bit of a surprise. And I think at the beginning, both Karen and I were afraid. I think there was obviously some fear. I think there was lots of uncertainty about what it was going to look like, and maybe also feeling very unprepared to figure out what was next. But you came into our family, and pretty quickly we learned that as long as you were full and had a clean diaper and had lots of rest, you were pretty good to go.
Yeah.
And then you have another brother named David. But when you were not very old, we started thinking about you, and we started thinking about your future. And I think one of the things that we thought about was, what will Anne do when she gets older, and who will her companions be? Who are the people that will be around her and with her, and also maybe help to make sure that she's not lonely? And so this goes back to about 2006, maybe. Anne was probably two to three. We became aware of an organization, I think it was based out in Maryland, if I remember right. It was called Reese's Rainbow. and they facilitated adoptions between couples in the U.S. and children in Eastern Europe mostly who had developmental disabilities. And they had a Christmas program, Angel Tree or something like that. But we saw a picture of Katie and just became kind of convinced that Katie needed to be part of our family. So we started the process of going through all the international adoption things that you have to do with, home visits and studies and petitioning and all that kind of stuff in 2007, I think it was. And then we actually got clearance to travel in July of 2008. So Daniel and Andrew and Karen and I went to Ukraine for 6 weeks.
And there was even there was a video, so there's some pictures.
There are some pictures, yeah. But Anne and David and Sam stayed with relatives and friends back here. And so we were in Ukraine for 6 weeks. And we had gone with the intent of adopting. We were going to adopt one for sure. We had the option of adopting a second child. And as we were going through that process, we were shown a picture of Emmy, and the picture of Emmy was a picture that could have been taken of Anne because they were almost identical in terms of they were kind of laying on a blanket like a little turtle with their head up. And I think we saw that both of us, saw that picture and just knew that Emmy needed to be part of our family as well. So, and Katie and Emmy happened to be in the same orphanage in Ukraine, right outside of Kharkiv. So
I don't met my family in Ukraine, so
that's right. You have a different mom and dad, don't you? So yes, we spent 6 weeks in Ukraine adopting Katie and Emmy. The year that they came home, we had a move down to the Twin Cities. Yeah, we've been trying to figure it out ever since.
I'd love to hear from either one of you. That's a pretty profound move to make. Was loneliness on the top of your mind when you were contemplating this?
I wasn't thinking of the term. What I was thinking about was companionship, because I think both of us had this sense that, that Anne would be close to her brothers, but whether it's geography or whatever, I mean, that tends to split people apart. So I think we were really thinking about who would be her companions as she got older. And that part has worked out really, really well. All three of them are super good friends. And do you fight sometimes with your sisters?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that right now.
Can we make that a
Please.
yes or no question?
No.
No? Okay. They're regular sisters, but they also enjoy many of the same things and really do have a lot of fun together. So
over the years, as all your kids, had friends in and out of the house and all of that, did you, and you started getting more and more involved in different kinds of advocacy groups. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then maybe how your experiences through some of those advocacy groups taught you to understand how people with disabilities do experience loneliness?
Sure. So one other event in my life that was significant, and you always kind of look back over your parts of your life and say, wow, I wonder if that wasn't preparing me for something. But I had a cousin with a developmental disability who was about 10 years older than I was. And through the course of his life, it was he was kind of not diagnosed until actually he got into, I think it was later elementary school or early junior high. But he actually spent time in several of the institutions that Minnesota had, both Faribault and Brainerd. And then as he got older, moved into community residence housing for a number of years, and then finally ended up back with his family. And he passed away about 10 years ago or so. So you were asking about advocacy. I think one of the things that I've always said is, when you have a child or children with disabilities, there really is no playbook for it. There's no place you can go and say, do this, do this, do this, and everything will kind of work out at the end. So I always kind of looked at it as a bit of a challenge in trying to figure out what's next. And I think both of us would say that, when you're kind of in the middle of it, all you can see is probably the next day or maybe the next week or maybe the next month. So you just kind of live for what are we doing today and then what are we going to do tomorrow. But there were several things that were really, really helpful for us. We were involved in Special Olympics, young athletes actually to start with when the girls were small, and then Special Olympics. And that connected us with a pretty awesome parents group. And, parents talk. And so parents start to, what's happening here? And, what kind of either services do you have available, or what are you exploring, or what's working for your children? And, you talk about doctors and you talk about dentists and you talk about everybody who can help. So certainly getting in with other parents and helping them kind of steer towards what's next. The other thing that was really important for me, and this goes back now about 10 years, and it was again from a parent's recommendation, to take the Partners in Policymaking class that was sponsored by the Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities. So I did that in 2014, and that really opened my eyes to several things. One, the first weekend that we were together, we learned about the history of kind of disability, and it was pretty amazing because some of it were things that I had experienced in my family personally, and just recognizing that, that's our past. That's what's happened, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way in the future. And so as I learned more about advocacy and about reaching out to legislatures and the role of state government and federal government and local governments, learned about, the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the IDEA Act, all those things. It just was very empowering, I think, for me, because I realized that things could be very different for my children than maybe what people had experienced previously. So that's kind of been a part of my journey. And now currently I chair the Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities, have for the last several years. And that really keeps, the best thing for me is that keeps me really plugged into both what's happening, what we need to be concerned about as parents and advocates, and also, I think, most importantly, probably what remains possible. Because again, the life of somebody that has a developmental disability does not have to be anything close to what it was in the past. It can be very exciting, and they can choose the life that they want. And part of our job is to just help facilitate that and make it the best life possible. Anne and Emmy have been part of an acting community, which is something that they enjoy, and that helps them be in the community, helps them sharpen their skills. It helps them show others what's possible. And I think it's really rewarding for them. So Katie enjoys sports activities and things like that. So she's been involved in Miracle League. She's been involved in Special Olympics. She was involved in adapted sports when she was in high school. And all of those things were kind of her community and ways that she stayed involved.
I also noticed something else since we've been sitting here today. A couple times when your dad was talking about some things that were pretty important to him, I noticed you just kind of reached over and put your hand on his shoulder and just made him feel a little better. Is that...
Like this?
Yeah, I thought that was really sweet.
I feel a baby cat, my mom, because I love Mom and his people so much. And Dad, hope to work together.
So all these are ideas, right? We can find togetherness in clubs that we belong to. Like you guys probably found some friends through acting, like you mentioned, and all of that. And when you see all this, and you've heard all of what we've said today, what ideas are sticking out at you? What are there some things you heard today that you think would be a really good way to reduce loneliness and to make people feel that they belong more?
Being with family for most of it, but also, you have friends that really support you the most.
Emmy, what have you done? What are some things you've done that you can remember that made somebody feel better? Like if you want to make someone feel a little less lonely, like you're right with them and you're going to stand by them, what do you do?
Well, after I got hip surgery years ago in a puppy, I get like a puppy hospital hours later in a puppy that make me feel better.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I caught the last of that.
So she's telling us about the time she had some pretty extensive hip surgery about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So she would have been early teens.
Yeah.
And spent some time in the hospital. And one of the things that helped you not be lonely, they had a therapy dog that came
I
in.
get a lot of puppies trying to help me feel better. Yes, but I still love puppies.
You do love puppies. And then you also had a number of friends who came and they brought you presents.
Yeah.
Katie has something that she does when you notice that somebody is feeling sad or somebody is sick, Katie. What do you usually do?
Draw, get cover, and to, I'm looking cover, for birthday.
Lee, any final thoughts?
Dad.
Loneliness is sometimes a byproduct of not being a part of a community. And I think one of the things that we need to continue to advocate for and to push for and to work towards is creating those communities. Life really is a journey, and it's great when you have a wonderful and supportive family that you can take that journey with, and also a community around you. And I think, looking back on our lives and the girls' lives, one of the things that we wanted them to do is have opportunities and to be able to make their own choices about, how they spent their time and what they did and what they wanted to be. And that's very much a work in process for us right now. So it's been fun to hear their thoughts on loneliness, though. And it's interesting to see because we all experience loneliness. And sometimes loneliness and grief can get mixed in together. And sometimes we need other people and we need help to kind of figure out what's going on and not be lonely anymore.
Well, and I just so appreciate your family, part of your family coming in today. We couldn't have even fit your whole family in this room, could we? It's just been terrific to have all of you here today and to be talking a little bit about that and giving us hope that even a family as large as yours and as close as you all are, there's still room to deal with loneliness and to experience it and to realize that we can lean on each other to get through it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of, as we're trying to put this issue together, we're trying to talk with people who have all kinds of different disability experiences, throughout the country, throughout the world. What does it look like in different parts of our communities? And I was chatting with one of our other authors who is autistic. And she shared, she's older now, she's in her 50s, but she shared that as someone with autism, when she was very young, she didn't understand the concept of we. When someone would say we, she didn't understand what that meant because all she could feel was I. She just felt all kind of alone inside of herself. And I think what we did here today with your big, huge, lovely family is to get a little concept of we. And you obviously have all grown up with that and you're all part of something. And that's something that's pretty special. And I just wanted to thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for giving us the chance to.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining the conversation. If you'd like to reproduce all or part of this podcast, please email icipub@umn.edu.
Our show is co-produced at the University of Minnesota's Institute on Community Integration by Impact Managing Editor Janet Stewart and ICI Media Producer Pete McCauley. Skylar Mihailov is our editor. Graphic designers are Connie Burkhart and Sarah Kurtner. For more information on the Institute and all of our products and projects, please visit ici.umn.edu.